Hey everyone, this is Pete. Welcome back to Atari ST A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari ST games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today is one of the former. Today we're looking at Hard Drivin. This was a 1989 release from Atari, and it was marketed as the world's first authentic driving simulation game. It was also only the second arcade game to use fully polygonal graphics after Namco's winning run. So this was originally developed and intended for release in 1988, but it was delayed over concerns that the arcade cabinet would be too expensive. It was going to cost about $10,000, which was a lot of money in 1988. And the reason it was so expensive was because of all the powerful custom hardware in it. So besides the computer hardware that was throwing these 3D graphics around, it also had force feedback steering. It had a realistic 4-speed manual gearbox with a clutch pedal, which is still very unusual to see in a driving game. And plus it had the usual gas and brake pedals as well. There were 15 different variants of this cabinet altogether, including sit-down cockpit and upright versions. And in total, a little over 3,000 were sold. I don't really know my arcade history well enough to know if that was sort of a good number or not, but yeah, 3,000 sold. That's 10 grand a pop. Not bad. So, the Atari ST port that we're going to be looking at today was developed by a guy called Jürgen Friedrich. He'd previously ported Star Wars the arcade game to Amiga the previous year, and that had been very well received. And equally, Hard Drivin for Atari ST was pretty well received as well, especially by ACE magazine, or Advanced Computer Entertainment as it was known. They described it as having potentially timeless entertainment, or potentially limitless entertainment, and they put it as a hot tip for the Christmas #1 in 1989. Not sure if that happened or not, but yeah, it was certainly pretty well received. Now, I don't have a copy of Hard Drivin by itself, but I do have a copy of this compilation here by Domark, which includes Hard Drivin along with Dragon Spirit, APB, Tubin and Zybots, which we've previously seen. So we can probably get something out of this. So here's the screenshots of this compilation. So this is all arcade ports, all developed by Domark and Tengen, who had a bit of a thing going on. And inside we've got all these lovely discs with all the different games on. I think Hard Drivin might be on one by itself. Oh no, it's with Tubin. There we are. There are 2 games, 1 disc. And we have the manual for the whole thing here. So let's see what it's got to say about Hard Drivin. So, the game, it's mean, it's hard, and it's here. Hard Drivin, the ultimate driving simulator, races onto your home computer from its runaway success in the arcades. Now you can get behind the wheel of the world's top sports car on a stunt course, jump bridges, drive the speed track, or even get dizzy on the vertical loop, all in super realistic solid 3D. Top drivers can challenge the Phantom Photon in a head-to-head, no-holds-barred contest to find the top hard driver. So yeah, I always found this quite an interesting game because in terms of content, it's quite limited. But it's also deliberately quite challenging and difficult to get to grips with, particularly on this Atari ST version where you don't have the sort of intuitive driving controls that you would have had in the arcade. And so, although there's technically only 2 tracks in this game, both of which are in the same environment, so you just pick a route at a junction at the beginning of the course and that determines whether you're doing a speed race or a stunt race, it took quite a while to practice. It took quite a while to get the skills you require to be able to reliably complete these courses, or reliably complete the stunt track anyway. The speed track was pretty straightforward. And yeah, I used to really enjoy this. So yeah, been looking forward to revisiting this one. So without further ado, let's go play Hard Drivin. Okay, here we are with Hard Drivin, originally by Atari in the arcades. And ported to Atari ST by Jürgen Friedrich. So this is an interesting game. I've never quite been able to work out if it's a very good game, because there are certainly far better games that do what this game is doing. But this is noteworthy for being one of the first to do the things that it's doing. Now, as you can see from the demo mode that's running here, this is a 3-dimensional polygonal racer, which is not something that we'd seen a lot of at the time, because most racing games of the period had been sprite-based vanishing point racers. And so yeah, this was providing something unique and interesting. And anytime someone is providing something unique and interesting for the first time, there are bound to be a few little teething problems along the way. Now, the arcade version of Hard Drivin was really cool to me as a kid because I've mentioned before on a few occasions about how when I was a child, I was very, very interested in the idea of being able to live out experiences on the computer that I wasn't yet old enough to do. I'm not talking about anything filthy like that, although, you know, if you know me now and you see some of the stuff I cover on my other site, MarioGamer.net, you might well think otherwise. But no, one of the main things I was interested in with video games and stuff like Hard Drivin was the fact that they gave me the opportunity to try things that I wouldn't be able to do for a good few years, things like driving a car. And I found the arcade version of Hard Drivin really compelling because although I'd played racing games before, I'd never before seen a racing game with a proper gear shifter. So something that wasn't a high-low gear shift like we had in Pole Position and Outrun and that sort of thing. I'd definitely never seen a racing game with a clutch pedal, which, yeah, it still kind of blows my mind today that game had a clutch pedal. And I'd not seen something take this three-dimensional approach either. So I was quite interested to give it a go when the home port came out. Now, I knew that it wasn't going to be the same experience as the arcade because you didn't have the same hardware. But I was still interested to give it a go. And, yeah, I remember this having sort of fairly mixed reception when it came out because, well, I mean, you'll see once we come to play it. Because there's good things about this game, and there's things that later games refined much more nicely. So let's jump in and have a play. So I'm a coward, so I'm gonna go with auto transmission because this is already hard enough. Press the button to start, and your engine starts like this, and right away we bounce off another car. Oh, that was another cool thing in the arcade version. You actually had to turn the key instead of pressing a start button. That was really cool. Alright, so in Hard Drivin you have two tracks that you can take on. If you go straight at the beginning here, you take on the speed track. And if you turn right at the junction, you take on the stunt track. So, we'll see if we can do both. So we'll do the speed track at first because that's much more easy. You'll notice that speed is a bit of a relative concept in this because it doesn't move terribly quickly. Whatever the speedo on the dashboard is saying. Yes, this does not feel like whatever that is, 90 miles an hour. Now, because the home computer versions of this lacked the specialist hardware of the arcade version, they had to do some interesting things with the controls. Now, most racing games up until this point had joystick controls, digital joystick controls. You just pushed left, you went left. But because Hard Drivin in the arcades had a proper analog steering wheel, the default control system in this ST version is to use the mouse, which takes a lot of getting used to. But once you get a feel for it, it's actually a very good method of control for this game. Now, the way it works, you might be able to see in the middle of the dashboard, there's two gauges. There's a vertical red one and there's a horizontal blue one. The blue one shows you the horizontal position of your steering wheel, and the red one shows you how hard you're pushing the accelerator. So if you click and hold the left button, the red one will increase and you'll go faster. Press the right button and it will go down and you will slow down. And move the mouse left and right and the marker on the blue gauge will move to show how far away from centre your steering wheel is. Now, the further away from centre you are and the faster you're going, the more likely you are to skid out. And so this is a game where you actually need to properly slow down for corners if you want to stay in control of the car. which was kind of an alien concept for a lot of people at the time, because most arcade racing games of the 80s and early 90s involved just slamming down the accelerator and going as fast as you possibly can at all times. And then hard driving comes along and expects you to brake and look carefully at what's coming up and not slam yourself around corners like I'm doing here. Yeah, this is a game that very much rewards... Whoops! A gentle touch, which I'm gradually losing the knack of. Okay, so now we're onto the stunt track. So the stunt track was sort of the unique selling point of hard driving, if you like. In that, rather than just racing around a boring old race course, you had things like this broken bridge that you had to... Whoops! Landed a bit hard, I think. Oh, and this instant replay, which was pretty neat at the time. See me jump. See me land much too heavily and explode. Alright, let's try that again. Do we have to jump the bridge again? Yes, we do. Yeah, so the bridge is probably the tamest hazard you have to deal with on the stunt track. Oh no, did it again. I think you might have to sort of slow down a bit in mid-air, if I remember rightly. And not go too fast over the top. Need to be going fast enough to actually clear the gap, obviously. There we go, that's much better. Right, now a really tight corner coming up, so let's lose some speed. Maybe not that much speed. And then we have the next hazard, which is the loop, which is an absolute nightmare. Because you have to be going a minimum of 60 miles an hour, you have to not fall off it, and, just to make matters more complicated, there is traffic on it. Oh, I've done it first time though. You sort of slightly inelegantly, but we have done it. Oh dear! Yeah. But yeah, one of the weird things about hard driving is that this isn't a closed race course. Despite having sort of... Ooh dear. I'm all the way back there, bloody hell. Despite having weird stuff like the bridge and the loop and stuff on it, this is not a closed race course. There is oncoming traffic. So you have to stay on the correct side of the road. And there is actually an option in the options menu as to whether you prefer a left-hand drive or right-hand drive game. So by default, this version that I'm playing here is set to left-hand drive. So it's like driving in the UK. Only with more loop-the-loops. I'm going to run out of time. Whoops! See, there we are. Oncoming traffic on a loop-the-loop. Oh, at least it hasn't started us quite so far back this time. We are going to run out of time, though. Yep, time's up. Game over. Alright, so we did get a qualifying time though, which allows us to take on the Phantom Photon, which is like the game's high score, if you like. So you're not allowed to crash. You only have 10 seconds off-road, otherwise you're disqualified. And if you win the race, then your performance on the track becomes what other people then race against in the future. So this was probably one of the first examples of a ghost racer. It's something we all take for granted in things like kart races these days. Now the awkward thing is when facing the Phantom Photon, Not only can you not crash, but you have to do it on the stunt track. Oh no! Well, that went badly, didn't it? You have been disqualified. Get another low lap time and try again. Alright, we can put my name in though. And there we go. Alright, let's have one more go. I'll see if I can get around the whole stunt track this time. So we'll go straight onto the stunt track this time, rather than... Ooh, dear. Oops. Rather than taking a little trip around the speed track. And try and make use of all the things we learned about slowing down for corners and missing the corner entirely. Oh, I'll tell you one thing you can do. That's a cow. You can tell because it goes moo when you hit it. That's clearly one of the programmers going moo, isn't it? Alright, let's carefully make it over the bridge. Not too fast, not too slow. A little bit more power. Over the top. And there we go, nicely done. Slow right down for this corner. Ease it round. And give it a little more power on the way out. As we head for the loop. Try and go as straight as possible up the loop. Even though it is at a slight angle. Which is where a lot of the difficulties come from. Oh no! I always hated this bloody loop. It's impossible. Right. I'm not even entirely sure why it's so difficult, because like loop-the-loops in games like Trackmania these days, Trackmania very much being a spiritual successor to this in many ways. I never seem to really have a problem with them in this, but it's just... Oh, fuck. Just staying on the road in this while you're trying to go over that loop is just inordinately difficult. And the fact that there can be traffic on it, that's just so harsh, because you can't see. There's no way of looking around or anything, so you can't see if there's anything coming. So if there's anything oncoming, you're screwed. If there's anything in your lane that you catch up with, then you're screwed. Oh! You just... Yeah, there's a bit of luck involved. We're not going to make it round this lap, are we? Right, come on, we can do this. We can do this. It's just a bit of road. Just a silly bit of road. Well, near enough. Oh, no, no! Well, 2 seconds. Oh, there's the checkpoint. Yeah. Oh, we might be able to roll into the checkpoint. That is one nice thing about this game, is it does keep you rolling a lot longer than some other games do. We still stopped just short of it though, haven't we? Disappointing. Alright, let's have one more go. Enter your name. This is one of those games I'm not really sure why there's a score in here, because it doesn't really make any sense, but... Well, there is a high score table, so... If you want to track your best scores in hard driving, then you can do.
let's do this. So, frame rate and sensation of speed aside, this is actually a surprisingly solid port of hard driving. It looks very much like the arcade version. Handling, you may question somewhat. But I mean, in the absence of proper analog controls for the Atari ST, the mouse control works pretty well. So you need your mouse to be performing well, obviously. So you need a nice clean mouse. You need a good surface to use it on. Alright, carefully. Lovely. Alright, dial it back for this corner. Maybe not that much. Alright, and power into the loop. Try and keep left if we can. Just narrowly missed. Oh, you shit! See what I mean? It's so difficult to know how you're supposed to handle that. Because if you go too slowly on the loop, you just fall off it. But if you go too quickly, you might rear end someone. If you try and overtake someone, you might hit them coming the other way. Now, what the hell are you supposed to do? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, nicely done. Actually did it properly for once. Alright, over the hump. Slow down a little bit for the dip so we can stay in control. There we go, now we're cooking. Right, and the final hazard. Oh dear. The final hazard is my steering. No, the final hazard is this banked corner. Which, being a corner, you want to be careful not to slam it round too hard. Because otherwise you'll slide out and you'll have a bad time. But there we are, all done. I think it's pretty much a straight line to the finish. Well, not a straight line, but you know what I mean. There's no other major hazards along the way now. We just have to make it to the finish line. Take it carefully around these corners. There's the finish. That was mean. Anyway. As I was saying, there's the finish line. Alright, extended play. So we didn't beat Phantom Photon's time that time. It's very difficult to beat Phantom Photon's time on the stunt track. Which is why if you just want a quick chance at racing him, then doing a quick lap of the speed track is probably your best bet. But then when you're racing him, you have to do the stunt track anyway, so you know it doesn't really save you from that. But anyway, yeah, now you've pretty much seen everything hard driving has to offer, because this is the only track in the game. Too fast? Too fast. No, there were a couple of sequels to this. There was Hard Driving 2, which I'm not entirely sure of the details of, because I've never actually played that one. And then there was Race Driving as well, which I think was... not sure if that was in the arcades or not offhand. But that had 3 tracks. Including a super stunt track that was gloriously stupid. And it also had 3 different cars you could drive as well, which each had their own cockpit design down at the bottom of the screen, so they were sort of distinguished that way. And so yeah, this is one of those games that may well look a little bit laughable today, particularly with regard to the sensation of speed in particular. But it was one of the first to do what it was doing. This was years ahead of stuff like Virtua Racing and Ridge Racer and all that sort of thing. And many of those sort of built on and refined the formula that this game was doing here. And then much, much later... what did I even hit there? Did I bang my head on the bridge or something? Can't even tell what I crashed into there. Yeah, guess I must have done. Yeah, so many years later, games like Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsport and stuff would have drawn some inspiration from this game as well, because this was one of the first racing simulations. The ridiculous tracks aside, the actual handling of the car is a lot more realistic than anything we'd seen in any racing game prior to this point. Oh, much too fast. Much too fast. Crash. And again. Oh, we're all the way back here. God. I did always like how, as you were driving around in this game, you could see bits of the other track. So they sort of crisscrossed over each other. I always thought that was really cool. And the way that it occasionally got the priority of 3D objects a bit wrong. Oh, did I just skip a whole chunk of track? I thought it put me back a long way, but it actually put me forward a long way. Well, another lap, I guess. Yeah, so the little graphical glitches in this always made me laugh, like when you could see the cars through the hills and that sort of thing. And that was just down to programmers at the time just not really having a complete handle on how 3D graphics really worked. Because prior to filled polygons like we had in this game, everyone worked with wireframes. And with wireframes, it doesn't matter if you can see things through other things, because, well, they're wireframes. They're made to be see-through. Oh god, oh god, oh god. Yeah, they're made to be see-through, so it doesn't matter too much. But sort of one of the earliest things that developers of early 3D games had to figure out was how to determine what was in front of other things and how to realistically block things off from view. And they didn't always get it quite right, with entertaining results. So you see that car's actually appearing behind the road. Oh, it's all over. That's hard driving. Hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. Yeah. Not the best racing game by any means, but, you know, revolutionary in many ways. So, definitely worth checking out. And the ST port, surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. So anyway, just remains for me to say, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue the small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.